Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today, I am joined by perhaps the longest, most requested guest that I've had joining me on the podcast. We were supposed to record almost 3 years ago. However, I'm finally joined by one Licia Rei, aka Kiss a Frog Cosplay. Licia, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I know back 2017, I think, is when I first reached out and we were working on getting things together, and then life just kept happening.
I know, and I'm so sorry about that. Things are just so busy over here.
I totally understand. I know how much life gets in the way of pretty much anything and everything at this stage. But I am so happy to have you. We're going to talk about your cosplay later on in the episode because that is how I originally found you. And it's been a joy watching you evolve as a cosplayer from 2017 to now. But first, we're going to talk about one of the major fandoms that you cosplay out of, which is Sailor Moon.
Oh my gosh, Sailor Moon. Oh man, Sailor Moon was my first anime ever when it was airing on Toonami. It just shows how old I am. And I instantly fell in love with the show, and I think it was her moon cosmic power transformation that just drew me in totally to the world of anime and the magical girl mahoushoujo genre. And that show just has a special place in my heart. And Sailor Mars is one of my favorite Sailor Scouts and my favorite characters of all time in anime. And being able to pick her for my first Sailor Scout cosplay was so cool. And I wanted to pay homage to my favorite character and do her justice. And I hope I did.
Absolutely. I speaking from just outside observer, I feel like you did. Which how did you originally got into it through watching it on Toonami?
Absolutely. It was 4:30 every day, 4:30 every day, and I would go to my dad's house after school. My mom would drop me off, and then she would go back to work, and I would turn on Cartoon Network and Sailor Moon, and I'd hear Tom's voice, and he would say, "Let's give it up for the ladies. Sailor Moon is next," and I would get so excited. And I loved every episode. And I came in to the show when Toonami was airing. I think it was season 3 when it was Sailor Moon Supers. So it was not Super S, but Supers. And it was just so cool to see all of the Scouts transform and to see Mars with all of her fire attacks. And then Sailor Moon's transformation was my absolute favorite. And watching the Deke dub, which that is what was airing on Toonami at the time. And then now, as I got older and saw the original Japanese Sailor Moon and heard all the original music, just reignited my love for the show. And so that's when I was cosplaying, I said, you know what? I'm going to do Sailor Mars. I'm going to do Serenity. And I'm going to do Neptune because Neptune was my other favorite scout. And I have just totally enjoyed being able to relive my childhood and relive my absolute favorite anime through cosplay.
It is so wild. It's nice almost to talk to somebody who remembers it being on Toonami, because I remember when Toonami started, there's an article in our local newspaper talking about how Sailor Moon was coming and how much of an impact Sailor Moon had in Japan and how it's going to have an impact here in America. And just I remember watching it on Toonami late at night or whenever they would have it on the air, and it's so incredible just to see it finally.
I had no idea really what anime was before Toonami came along, and the first show that they aired was Sailor Moon. That's what drew me in, because from then on I'd watch the whole Toonami block. I watched Sailor Moon, I watched Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, Tenchi Muyo, which was also huge for me. Ryoko is my girl. She's on my cosplay list. But it opened up a whole new world to me and a whole new genre of TV and movies that I just fell in love with. And especially Sailor Moon, the show has shaped my life so much. And I have so many collectibles, it's not even funny. My husband has to walk by both bookcases that are full of Sailor Moon stuff. when I was at Anime Expo last summer, I bought the Moon Stick and I talked to Bandai, and I was able to stand at the booth as Serenity and just be in my childhood. And Sailor Moon just means so much to me as an almost 30-year-old adult, and it just has helped shape my life in Usagi. I stand by a lot of the principles that Usagi stood for, and she and the rest of the scouts have really molded me as a person.
Now you said Sailor Mars is your favorite.
Yes, she is.
What drew you to Sailor Mars?
She's just, and this is going to sound, no pun intended, she is just such a fiery soul, and she is no nonsense, and I'm the kind of person to be headstrong and to take charge, where sometimes Usagi isn't always the one to just take the lead, and Mars is usually the one that's like, okay, I've got this. And we have a very similar personality, and I have always loved Mars in her little red heels, and purple is one of my favorite colors, and she has a purple bow. So I was like, okay, I have to cosplay this one. I fell in love with this one, and her long black hair. I used to play with my sister and all of my friends. We would play Sailor Moon after school, and I would always like try and flip my hair like Mars does. And so she has just always been a favorite.
That's awesome. I know for me personally, like Mercury has always been my favorite, but I've got that soft spot for Mars just because I love her antagonistic relationship with Usagi.
Yes. I remember the Sailor Moon, the super movie, with the Ice Queen, the way that they stuck their tongue out and they would fight with each other in one of the scenes. That's one of my favorite gifs that floats around, and that's the iconic moment I always think of when they have their little squabbles, is that moment in the movie.
Do you have a favorite season or a favorite storyline that came out of Sailor Moon?
Yes, the Super S arc with Helios and the Dead Moon Circus. That one's my favorite. The double transformation with Mini Moon and Sailor Moon is one of my favorites. It's actually my ringtone. And because that's the manga that I started with when I started collecting the Sailor Moon manga. The old mix translations, they were the smaller books with the colorful covers. I had all of Supers. I had 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's what I started reading. I had no idea there was more Sailor Moon before that when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and so that's what drew me into Sailor Moon was the Supers and all the Supers transformations, the longer bows in the back and the sleeves. And so that's what I cosplay mainly is I've done Super Sailor Mars and Super Sailor Neptune, because that was my real true first love for the Sailor Moon manga, was the Supers translations from Mix. And I actually have 2 of them, and I'm not sure where the other 2 have gone. I've had them for such a long time. And now that I have collected all of the Sailor Moon manga and the new Eternal editions, I reread. I always skip the first like 4 books and I go straight into the Supers, because that's what I remember most. My fondest memories are with that arc.
Absolutely. One of the things I always like to find out is, I mean, after you discovered Sailor Moon and you saw the stuff on Toonami, did you ever go back and watch it in Japanese with just like the subtitles?
Yes, when Hulu aired all of Sailor Moon, when they added it to their streaming service, I went back to episode 1, season 1, and started from the beginning, and seeing some of the things that were missed in the English, in the original dub, and hearing the music that was edited out with the original Japanese translation was just so awesome. And so I actually, on YouTube, someone has the entire music box album of the Sailor Moon music, and I have it saved. So I go back and listen to that and try to plug that into the episodes. And so I was so ecstatic when Hulu put all of the seasons out, because I started from episode 1 all the way to the end, and finally got to see Sailor Moon Stars for the first time, because Stars didn't come to the US until I think it was like maybe 2015 or 2016, if I remember correctly.
Right, because of the controversial and I'm using air quotes, like controversial storyline.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Do you prefer, like, now that it's all said and done, as far as most of the Sailor Moon, I believe Crystal is still going on. Um, but when it comes to it, do you prefer to just rewatch, or do you prefer to just dive into the manga that you have?
I prefer to rewatch because that's what I started with. And hearing the music and seeing the transformations and hearing the voices that I grew up with. I have some of the original dub on DVD, so I love to hear like Luna's original little British accent. Just warms my heart so much. And with the redub now, that's something that I miss. And so I prefer to go back and rewatch. And I leave my manga just for collecting. I don't want to open them and like crease the books. I just keep them on the shelf with the rest of my collectibles because that to me that those are my little the manga to me that is my little piece of heaven right there, something that just means so much to me, so I leave it alone. It's for display only. So
Okay. I totally understand that. I know that I have manga where it's like I've read it the one time and that's it. It now is in a box or in a bookcase and it's pretty much not touched again.
exactly, that's how I am with my Sailor Moon and my Death Note manga is the same way.
Now, out of curiosity, have you watched Crystal?
I have watched Crystal, and at first I wasn't really a fan, just because I was so used to the old transformations and I was just so attached to the old show. But I knew that Crystal stuck with the manga to a T, like page for page, and so there wasn't as much filler like the original Sailor Moon was. And I
Hmm.
liked that part that it stuck right to the manga, so all of the good parts were there. And so I do like Crystal for that aspect. I haven't watched it since the second season, so I am awaiting the time when I can sit down and pick Crystal back up.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've heard is that it cuts out all, and it's notorious about Japanese anime for the most part is there's a ton of filler stuff, and I heard that Crystal cut down on it, and it's one of the things where I'm like, man, I really need to just sit down and watch the show and see how it is.
Right. Crystal cuts out a lot of the quote unquote monster of the day that the
Hmm.
original Sailor Moon had, which I think is part of the original Sailor Moon's charm.
That is, I you gotta love those monsters.
Mhm.
You gotta love seeing the transformations and them doing the same attack too. I mean,
You know what? Absolutely. As an 8-year-old, I don't care how many times I saw it. I still think it was the coolest thing ever since the first time I've seen it.
yeah, it's just like Power Rangers. I mean, you got the whole up, do the same attack, the same thing. The Zord turns around, explosion, done. Every time
Yep.
they follow that routine. Now, if people are listening out of curiosity, out of thought of this is if they've never seen Sailor Moon, what would you suggest for them to like? Where should they go? Should they do Crystal? Should they watch the originals? Like, what would your guidance be?
I would say go back and watch the first season of the original Sailor Moon. And then if you don't like it or if you find it does have that cheesy 90s anime charm. And if it's not quite your fancy, you can go ahead and start with Crystal. Crystal's going to be a little more to the point. Crystal is beautifully animated and it is an incredible show. But if you're not quite digging the like vintage, anime vibes of the 90s Sailor Moon, totally start with Crystal. But the 90s anime will always have my heart.
Absolutely. So, on top of Sailor Moon, you're also into a number of other fandoms, and one of the other ones is one that I have lived and loved and excited about to see where they're going, and that's Star Wars.
Yes. Okay. So, just to start this off, to show how much I love Star Wars, my husband and I actually got married on Star Wars Day last year.
Awesome.
And our hashtag was May the 4th be with you. So, and we're going to be honeymooning at Disney World and we're going to go to Galaxy's Edge. So, if that gives you a little insight onto how much I love Star Wars, how much my husband and I love Star Wars, that would be it.
Well, I got to add on that my wife and I are going to be going to Galaxy's Edge later this month, which by the time this episode comes out, will have hopefully already gone. And I am so looking forward to it. We had sworn off getting Disney annual passes because we're like, okay, they're building Toy Story Land, they're building Star Wars. We're just gonna wait until everything's done, until they're settled for a while, and it's like, okay, now we can go to Galaxy's Edge.
I'm excited. I'm really excited to go, and I'm glad that my husband and I waited. We waited for the hike to go down a little bit, just a little bit, so that the lines aren't as long. But I am so excited. My husband's thrilled to build a lightsaber, and I am too. I want to build a BB unit. I think BB-8 is adorable, and I'm just really excited to be able to be in this fantasy world that I have loved since I was a child.
Now, how did you originally get into Star Wars? Because I know everyone has a different path into this fandom, and I'd love to know how you got into it.
I got into Star Wars when I think I was about 10, and some of my friends and family took me to see episode 1. And so I'm sitting through this movie and I'm like, this is really cool. Oh my gosh, this is so neat. And I'd heard about Star Wars and, I knew about Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker, but this was episode 1 was my real, like, true introduction to the films. And so I saw the movie and I loved it. I'm super obsessed. I went home and I was like, Mom, I saw this new movie called Star Wars. My mom was like, Girl, that movie is not new. And I was like, it's not. And she's like, it's not. So she took me to the library and we rented episodes 4, 5, and 6. And we sat down and we watched them. And I have been hooked ever since. Ever since.
Out of curiosity, because a lot of my guests that come on either start with the original trilogy or they fall into the category of experiencing it with episode 1. Out of curiosity, and my love for Star Wars movies exists across all of them.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts as far as the prequel trilogy? Because I know it gets a lot of hate sometimes, although it's dying down now with other stuff that's happening in the fandom. But just out of curiosity, like, how do you feel about the 1, 2, and 3?
I loved them. I absolutely loved them because that's what I grew up with before I knew, well, at least episode 1, before I knew that there were, 3 more movies that, followed all of this. And so I thought that they were wonderful, and I thought that they gave a lot of insight into what happened next, especially for me, because sometimes it takes me a while to, like, pick up on movies. And so I really enjoyed episode 1. I really enjoyed episode 2, and episode 3 I saw with a friend of mine when I was obviously when I was a little older. I think I was in high school at the time, or
Hmm.
had just graduated. I finally figured out a lot of the history that was going on after rewatching episodes 4, 5, and 6 by myself at home. And I have loved all the Star Wars movie. I am one of those Star Wars fans. I don't really have any complaints about
Hmm.
things, and I tend to stay away from the negative side of the fandom.
That's a good thing.
I want to see the positive in everything, especially because I love Star Wars so much. I can't see myself loving it and still being able to criticize it so harshly that other people who may not know much about the fandom who are coming into it are turned away. And I would love for the Star Wars fandom to be a little more positive and to be a little more inviting to people and not so elitist, because I have seen those people walk away from a fandom, this huge, amazing fandom, because
Hmm.
they have been bullied into an opinion, or they have been treated so badly by liking something or a certain character or someone. And I certainly don't think that's fair.
I am nodding my head over here just because obviously podcast you can't see it and we're recording and you're far away and you can't see me nodding. But like I did a whole episode just about like Star Wars and the fandom and some of the craziness that goes on. So I'm very happy to hear that you're like super positive about it. That's so awesome.
Because I would like people to be able to come into the fandom and love it as much as I do and as much as my husband does, and see the positive people, and to be able to enjoy everything from episode 1 to episode 6 to Star Wars Rebels to the Clone Wars, which is one of my favorite Star Wars series. I absolutely love the Clone Wars, and I can't wait for the 7th and final season to come out. And I just want people to be able to feel the joy that I feel without feeling judged for loving it as much as I do, or being able to voice an opinion without getting attacked. I see it so much on Twitter and on Facebook and in the Star Wars groups I'm in, that being around toxic people in fandom can really bring you down and can sometimes turn you into a toxic person too. And I don't want to see that happen to any new Star Wars fans or to any new fans in any fandom.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, with the Star Wars franchise, the Star Wars universe, there's a plethora of characters. Who's your favorite?
Oh man. I absolutely love General Grievous. I just think he's amazing. His design is wonderful. His backstory is really, really cool. His laugh is actually my text tone. So every time, and it's my mom's too. So anytime I text my mom, you hear the like heh, 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 from like Grievous, and it's hilarious. I absolutely love Mace Windu. I love Adigalia, and let's see, what's some of my favorites? Ahsoka. I absolutely love Ahsoka Tano. I have a soft spot for Ahsoka after watching the Clone Wars. I think I've watched that entire series start to finish maybe like 5 or 6 times. And I just enjoy. There's this certain magic about Star Wars that just brings out my little sci-fi geek heart and brings out that magic and wonder of me as a 10-year-old. It just takes me back. And anything new Star Wars that comes out, I have to see because I want to be able to keep up with my fandom and keep up with this entire galaxy that I have fallen in love with.
Oh, that is an understatement as far as the number of stuff out there and the how much there's going on and the characters. You've got a couple deep cut characters that I really enjoy. There's definitely a shocker. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they were like, General Grievous fan.
Oh, I love General Grievous's design, and we can't forget about Baby Yoda, which yes, I know it's not his name, the child, but I also absolutely love Baby Yoda. And Build-A-Bear announced that they are going to have him in stores to build. I want to be the first in line. I'm going to be the Mandalorian in there that says I'm here for the child. And I'm actually, speaking of, my husband and I are both building Mandalorian armor right now. To debut, and he is trying to get his done by. There's a convention coming up in my hometown called HerdCon, so he's trying to get his built, and we are a part of the Mandalorian Mercs costume club. So he's trying to get, as they call, kitted, trying to get his costume finished. Mine won't be done by that time, but we're trying to get it done so that he can wear it. And so I definitely want, for mine, I want to carry around a Baby Yoda with me.
That is so cool. That's so cool. Do you have and again, I know I'm going to make you choose some hard stuff here. You gave me a couple great characters. Do you have a favorite movie?
Oh, do I have a favorite movie? That's tough. I really loved all of them, but I think if I had to pick, it would be Episode 2 with the introduction of the clone troopers and the clone army, and I just absolutely loved the movie in the aspect of you got to see Obi-Wan grow up just a little bit, and you got to see Anakin grow up just a little bit, and I just absolutely fell in love with Episode 2. I didn't get to see it in theaters. I bought it on DVD when it came out, and so I'm sitting at home just screaming and giggling over this entire movie and just having a total fangirl moment when they first introduce the army and you see all of these clone troopers with their guns, and I'm just like, yes, it has begun, but little did I know Episode 3 rolls along and we all know how that ended.
Oh, that was definitely a heartbreak there. There's several of my favorite Jedi just like
Oh, I know.
so hard. Okay, so we got your favorite characters and we got your favorite movie, but I want to jump over to something that you said about Clone Wars. Like is Clone Wars like the epitome of what you love about Star Wars?
Yes and no. Princess Leia actually was one of my favorites growing up. She has always been a huge influence on me, and I actually have a rebel symbol on my car. And my favorite quote just from the rebellion is rebellions are built on hope. And I was really, really devastated when Carrie Fisher passed. She was such a huge advocate for mental health and such a huge advocate for just being yourself and being mentally healthy. And I suffer from depression and I have anxiety, and being able to see the world's strongest, the galaxy's strongest princess. Seeing her pass away was really heart wrenching for me, and so I really, really resonate a lot with Carrie Fisher and a lot with Leia because Carrie Fisher herself helped me battle through some of my darkest times, and Star
Mhm.
Wars helped me through a lot of my darkest times.
That is, I mean, that is one of the things that I think not only, with the whole franchise is just losing Carrie Fisher and what she has meant for everyone, that's in the fandom, and especially those who relate to her so much, is that her attitude is gone. And I know that there was a story, I think it had just come out, how she had, or I read it a couple of weeks ago, about how she used to rewrite her lines and be like, no, this isn't what Leia would say, no, this is not what Leia would say, let me fix it for you.
Yeah, Carrie was such a moving force, and Leia is such an iconic character, and she has helped a galaxy of people. Not
Hmm.
to continue to use that term, to overcome a lot of things and to see themselves in a light that maybe they don't see themselves.
Absolutely, and definitely going to be missed. And
Absolutely.
her presence is definitely was felt in the last movie as well.
Oh, absolutely. I was in tears. It like uncontrollably sobbing during the last movie.
For Star Wars, now that we've wrapped up on the essential like 9 movie, what they have called the Skywalker saga,
Mhm.
we're getting, like you said, the last season of the Clone Wars. We're getting at some point an Obi-Wan series,
Mhm.
and we're getting the second season of The Mandalorian this year, which is phenomenal, and I'm super excited about that.
Me too.
What if they said, Licia, we want you to figure out like what we're going to do next? Where would you go movie wise for like what you would love to see in the movies for Star
Oh,
Wars?
oh God. Um, oh, loaded question. That I don't know. I think I would like. I'm a like big battle fan, so anytime like towards the end of the movies, all of the huge fights, I would just
Mhm.
love an entire like 2 hours of just a huge all out battle. That's just me. Give me all of the space battles, blowing up of the space stations and all battle droids. Give it to me. Just give me a 2 hour fight scene, and I'll be fine.
Give you like the last hour of Rogue One.
Yes, exactly. Because Rogue One is so underrated. It was so good. That whole battle was so good.
That was the one thing when I first watched Rogue One. I was like, man, they're taking a long time to like establish these characters and set stuff up,
Hmm.
which is understandable. New characters and new things going on, and you got to figure out what's happening. But when they hit Scarif and they had the land, and then they had like the fleet come in, oh my gosh! From that moment on, I was like, yep, I'm good with this. Just
Yeah,
give it to me more.
same. As soon as I saw the AT-ATs and the AT-STs like land on the beach, I was like, all right, all bets are off. That's it. This is it.
Yeah, it was so good, and oh gosh, just I don't know. And the one answer I always give is I wish they would get Donald Glover under contract and give me like a Lando trilogy.
Oh, absolutely. Lando's one of my favorites, but Donald Glover was spot on as a young Lando in Solo.
Hmm.
Spot on.
Yes, like I didn't go into that movie with a lot of high hopes because
Uh,
I didn't even see it in theaters. I watched it on Netflix,
you know what? I didn't either. I saw it in theaters when it came out.
but man, I watched it and I said, wow, this is a good movie. I really wish people hadn't like poo pooed on it.
Yeah, same. Same. I enjoyed it.
It was good. All right, so you just want your future Star Wars is just lots of fighting.
Right. Just give me the like space lasers. Pew 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 pew. Give me all of that. I'm good. Star Wars.
Now,
Pew.
now in your future Star Wars, do you want Jedi or no Jedi?
Oh, absolutely Jedi.
Gotta have the Jedi.
Absolutely Jedi. Like if
All
Mace Windu were to like magically come back and just wave his purple lightsaber around, that would be great.
right. And last question before we move on is what is your lightsaber color?
So I'm actually a martyr, which is the same as Mace Windu. So my lightsaber color is purple.
I don't think I've heard of murder before, but I might be out of the loop on like some of the naming conventions.
We're the angry Jedi. So
Oh, you're the angry Jedi. Okay.
yes, yes.
Now we're gonna go from Star Wars to possibly, and I'm not familiar with it. I know it's a first-person shooter video game. I know it has some good voice actors in the game series, and there's two of them. And we're going to talk about Destiny. Beyond that, I don't know much about it. I don't think I've even seen people play it on Twitch that much. So, what is Destiny? How did you get into it?
So my husband and I, when we had just started dating, I had just bought a PlayStation 4 for the first time, and so he shared his gaming library with me, and I had set up my PlayStation, and I'm sitting in my room. Oh, he lived in Indianapolis, so we were about 5 hours from each other, and so I booted up my PS4, and I see this game on my screen. It says Destiny. I'm like okay, I'll give it a try. And so I boot it up and I start playing and I fall in love with it. And I message my husband and I'm like, hey, what is this? Do you still play this? This is fun. And he's like, yeah, let me hop on. And so that's how it started. We played together and he helped me get through all of the missions. This was Destiny 1, the first Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would play for hours and hours. And then my brother, Jonathan, had it too. And he was like, yeah, let's make a fire team. And so a fire team is 3 people. So we
Okay.
would run strikes all night. And we went through the raid with a friend of mine. And we killed Crota. We got everybody. And we're just, I play a Titan. So I'm just shooting heavy ammo all the time. And I'm punching people out. It's great. And when Destiny 2 came out, my husband and I were still distance, and we all of us, myself, my husband, my brother, we all went and got the pre-orders and we picked them up the same night, waited for the game to download, and all 3 of us sat down and played. And it's just something that my husband and I connected over for almost 2.5 years while we were distant, and it just has a special place in my heart and in his heart too, because that's how we, every night for 2 or 3 hours, we would run strikes and just talk to each other. And I have just fallen in love with this game, and like I've never fallen in love with a game before.
What was it about the game that like, because there's a number of like first person shooters out there. So what was it in particular that drew you to it, that like made you want to play it?
It was the fact that I was playing with somebody I loved, and that I wasn't just this lone person in an online world getting shot at, and it wasn't just a free for all, because I'm really really bad at like PvP. I'm terrible at it. And in Destiny, PvP is run by a Titan. His name is Lord Shax, and all he does is scream at me anytime I play PvP. He's like, "You're falling behind," and I'm standing here with my gun. I've died 50 times. I'm like, I know. And so being able to have a team and being able to go through missions that don't rush you along is what made me fall in love with it, because I'm not the greatest gamer in the world, and sometimes it takes me a while to get my controls down and have memory with buttons. So Destiny was easy for me to play when I was first starting out with a PlayStation. And now that I am a seasoned player, I love it because I can get through things by myself. And I have this little ghost who is this little voice in a machine who I carry around, who floats around with me, that kind of keeps me in line and tells me what to do. And my ghost is pretty funny. So I really enjoy Destiny for the aspect of, it was my first real game, and something that I bonded with my husband over for years.
And that's awesome, being able to share that with somebody else and being able to just work together as a team like that.
Except in the raid, the Leviathan raid is hard. I think we attempted it for like 3 hours and we couldn't get through it, so we just gave up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was lots of screaming, lots of cussing across 5 hours worth of distance, and my brother lives. He lived an hour from me. Now he's moved to Florida. So when we play now, he's like, "Let's do the Leviathan raid," and I'm like, "Can we not?" Please? So, but it's so fun, and the lore of the game is so wonderful, and the Destiny community, Bungie, they treat their players and their community so well. I actually, a few weeks ago, one of my really close friends, her name was Sherry Joe, was an avid Destiny player. She was well known across the globe in the community. She unfortunately was murdered,
Oh
and
no.
the community rallied around her. And I actually sent an email to Bungie to see if they would preserve her account, preserve her character, and they told me that they would. And when things like this happens, the Destiny community and Bungie, they treat their players so well, and I was so thankful for the community and the game that I love and the game that she loves so much. Destiny was such a huge part of her life that they could do something like this for her to kind of, memorialize her. And that's also
Absolutely.
why I love this game so much. In this community, we treat each other like family because in the game, you're guardians, you are family, you have each other.
Oh
And
wow.
they are, we're such a great fandom and such a great community. And I was just so moved that they would do this for her.
That's incredibly heartbreaking. I'm so sorry to hear that. Now, I guess my question as far as Destiny goes in the lore, like what makes the lore so special? Because I know that you wrote when you wrote to tell me about Destiny, you said the lore is wonderful. What is it about the lore?
It's so thorough, and it goes back years and years and years and years into the game, and anytime that there's a new expansion, the lore is written. There's a story behind it. There's a story behind everything, and my husband knows a little bit more about it than I do. But when I started reading, especially about Ikora and about uh, Commander Zavala, and especially Cade Six. Um, when Cade passed away in the game, people were sharing a lot of the lore and a lot of the stories about him that I didn't know, and so there is a huge fandom just within the lore and the stories of Destiny that has been written about the game and also the game itself. So there's hours and hours and hours of reading to be done, along with hours and hours and hours of gameplay, and it's almost like you have to know a lot about the lore to read the game to be able to, or to read about the game to play the game, because there's so many things you need to know, and a lot of things are hidden in the lore that you need to know about the game, which is really neat to me as somebody who likes to read and somebody who likes to dig and research games, because I'm always looking at game guides because sometimes I get really confused while playing. So I'm the
Hmm.
kind of person to have my phone by my controller, like looking things up. And I actually follow a page on Facebook called Do You Know Destiny, that every day they will post something new, and it's like a did you know, and I've learned so much about the game just by looking up the did you knows on Facebook about what I'm doing, and they're so informative, and a lot of people in the comments will post about tips and tricks to whatever they're talking about, especially if it pertains to a strike or to a mission or something in the storyline. So this whole community is just amazing because we help each other out and we translate a lot of things for each other. Like if somebody doesn't understand something, it's not like in a lot of the other fandoms of people. If they ask a question like, "Well, you should know this. You call yourself a fan." In the Destiny community, somebody's like, "Hey, wait, I know this. Let me tell you."
Hmm.
So gatekeeping in the Destiny community is not as prevalent in other communities, which I love, which also is what draws me into this community as somebody who still can sometimes be perceived as a noob, who still has a lot of questions. It's nice to hear from friendly people who just want you to know and love the game as much as they do.
Absolutely. Now, as far as like, I am not a good first person shooter. I haven't been good since like the old Wolfenstein and Doom way back in mid 90s where you just pushed the space bar and you did up, down, left, right, and that was
Right.
it. As far as Destiny goes, like how involved is it? Because I know that there are some first person shooters out there that there's so many things with the buttons and knowing how to like use them properly or in a certain combination. Like, what's the entry level for Destiny like?
Entry level for Destiny is probably Halo. Like if you've played Halo, you can play Destiny. Um, I played a little bit of Halo on the 360, and I then graduated into Grand Theft Auto. like GTA 4 for the 360, and then GTA 5, and then Destiny. I'm terrible at first person shooters, but I love this game because there's kind of a learning curve. So I can shoot something, I can punch something out, and I can move. My greatest feat is shooting heavy ammo and then backing behind a wall so that it doesn't hit me back. So even though I'm a Titan and I'm usually the first person to charge into a battle or to charge into a strike, I tend to do a few hits, die a couple of times, then hang back with like a grenade launcher and just do heavy damage while my husband plays a hunter so he can float around and shoot things with a hand cannon and, ballerina jump from pillar to pillar while I can't.
Absolutely. That sounds so cool though. And I love that, you get to have that experience with your husband and with your brother, and you just are like that team. And oh man, it sounds so cool.
It is. It's fun, and I wouldn't fire team with anyone else. We play well together, and we have such a great bond within the game. And we each play one of the classes. So I play a Titan, my husband is a hunter, and my brother Jonathan is a warlock. So we have all three, and we can just go in, and we usually can get through strikes pretty quickly, and we always do a pretty good job. I'm usually the lowest when it comes to kills because I'm the one usually who's dying first, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm just having such a good time.
Exactly. And that's all that, as long as everyone's having a good time, that's, I hopefully, that's all that matters.
Yes, absolutely. As long as you're having a good time and you're having a good time with people who are going to be patient with you, who are, around the same skill level that you are, gaming is about having fun. It doesn't really matter, especially if you're a casual gamer like I am, it doesn't matter how good you are. As long as you're having a blast and you know that the level that you are on, you are comfortable with, that's all that matters.
Well, there you go. Straight from the mouth of Licia Rei. Get into that some of that Destiny. Now, are they going to have a Destiny 3, or do you know if it's just Destiny 2?
I think it's just Destiny 2 for now. I haven't heard or seen anything about a potential Destiny 3 because they're still expanding on the game. A new expansion just came out. Shadowkeep just came out. It's so creepy and it is so good. And that just came out. And I think they're working on another expansion that's going to come out later this year. They usually have like one or two come out a year. And Destiny 2 is still very popular and is still building on the community right now. So I think they're sticking just with Destiny 2 for now.
Cool beans. And I like that they're adding to the Destiny 2 rather than, rolling out another game and then saying, here, pay more money, big bucks.
Right, absolutely. And the expansions for Destiny aren't super expensive, and they're so fun, and there's so much to do in them that you're not just getting like 15 minutes worth of stuff and then that's all you paid for. Like with the latest Destiny expansion, they have expanded on the raid. There are 2 new strikes. There's so many more things to do.
That's always a good thing. I hate when companies are like, oh, well, here is your extra like one figure or an extra like storyline, but the storyline is only a couple hours long.
Right, I agree.
Pay the big bucks for it.
Right.
All right, Licia, we are here and we're ready to talk about it. And like I said at the beginning, I found you because when I originally started the podcast way back in 2016, I was like, who can I find to talk about fandoms? Well, people that dang well invest their blood, sweat, and tears into wearing costumes straight out of the fandoms that they love. And you are into cosplay.
Yes.
How did you get into cosplay to begin with?
Well, I started back in, I think it was like 2014, 2015, I think. Oh God, I'm getting old, can't remember things. And my friend Katie messaged me on Facebook one day. I was like, "Hey, have you ever been to an anime convention?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think I have." And so she was like, "Well, you dress up as your favorite characters and stuff, and there's one in town. Like, you should go with me. Come with me." And I'm like, "Okay." So, I'm looking for cosplay. I didn't find anything. What a lot of people don't know is that Japanese Lolita fashion was my first love before cosplay. And so I looked up Lolita, like cheap Lolita dresses that, I will not wear ever again for the rest of my life because I have evolved past that. And so I picked one out, bought all the accessories, got dressed, went to the convention. which is SubasaCon, which is one of my home conventions. I'm staff there now. I run the maid cafe there. And I walked into SubasaCon and instantly was like, these are my people. Where have these people been my entire life? What have I been doing? What is happening? And that's where it all started. And I went from wearing Lolita to, I think my first major cosplay was Rouge the Bat from Sonic, and then on to Princess Tiana from The Princess and the Frog, and then Sailor Mars, and it just blossomed from there. And I have always been into theater. I did theater as a kid and as a teenager into my 20s. So costuming and makeup and being able to transform into a character has always been something that has been easy for me. And so cosplay was just an extension of that. And I have always loved everything that I have dressed as, and seeing other people at every single level in cosplay has always inspired me as well. So I started with SubasaCon, which is my home con. It's a wonderful convention in Charleston, West Virginia, that I absolutely love and has a special place in my heart. And my friend Katie, without her, I probably wouldn't have known about SubasaCon, and I'm so thankful that she introduced me to my people.
Absolutely. And it's always, it's always something where, and I've had a number of cosplay guests that have come on that talk about how they had no clue. Like, they had no clue that there's even such a thing as conventions, as anything, that it existed until somebody else said, "Hey, have you heard about this? Let's go."
Right. I had no idea. And I was sitting in my apartment alone. I had nothing to do that weekend. I was probably going to go visit my mother. And Katie was like, let's go. And I'm like, okay, here's $40 for a badge. I have a costume. Let's go. And I had a blast. And I was like, is this it? 3 days? That's all we get? I got to wait till next year? Wait a minute. I was like, wait. There's got to be more than this. And there was. And so then I started going to other conventions, OhioCon, Colossal Con, and that grew into something much bigger than I could have ever imagined when I started.
Absolutely. What is it about the characters that you cosplay? Like, when you choose a character, are you choosing it because that is your character, that's who you connect with, and you go from there? Has there been characters where you're like, I love the outfit, let me do that character?
I usually connect with characters that I love, like Princess Tiana. I'm a pastry chef. I work at a bakery, and Tiana wanted to own her own restaurant, and so Tiana is one of the biggest inspirations to me. And is her likeness, the owner Leah Chase of Dookie Chase in New Orleans, and so food has always been a big part of my life, and baking, and then finally seeing a Black princess who looked like me. I pick characters who really resonate with me, like Mars, her fieriness and her attitudes about life and how fierce she is. I've always been a very, very stand-up, fierce person, so I
Hmm.
resonated with Mars. And Rouge took me out of my comfort zone because I was very plus size at the time. And for those of you who didn't know, I've had the gastric sleeve and I've lost 180 pounds. And so being able to be plus size in this sexy little outfit was such a confidence boost. And I wore her to OhioCon for the first time. And I chose her because she was sexy and she was fun. And I wanted to feel sexy and fun. And being able to find characters that I just loved, and not so much that I just loved the design, but that I actually resonated with, is how I choose cosplays.
Totally awesome. And I know, I didn't. One of the things I always do is, let the guest guide the conversation, as you have done. um and you are the second person that I know who has also have gone through that surgery, that has been a life-changing surgery for them. And I did want to ask, like, when you were doing the cosplay, what was the general reaction when you were plus size and cosplaying?
I When I first started cosplaying, I didn't get a whole lot of hate, honestly. I was pretty immune to the internet trolls. It wasn't until Afropunk posted one of my pictures of my Sailor Mars when I was at my heaviest, that the real insults and the ugliness of the internet started to come out. Somebody said I should have cosplayed Jupiter because it has the largest gravitational pull, and that I should have been the gas giant instead. People were saying some really ugly things, and your typical, you all should be concerned about her health. She probably can't walk up a flight of stairs. And you have all these people that are, quote unquote, fake concern for my health because I was heavy.
Right.
And a lot of those comments didn't affect me because I was used to having hate slung at me from all kinds of angles being on the internet. But some of them did, especially because Afropunk kind of threw me into the spotlight when it came to cosplay. Because of that, I started getting convention invites and my popularity grew. Overnight, I went from like 3,000 followers to like 13,000. And I was now thrust into the public view, and I didn't really know how to handle it at first. And the thing that I had focused on really was some of the negative things. And people would jump to my defense and would tag me in the comments, which made it worse because I was trying to ignore it and it kept coming back up to the point where I had to log out of Facebook for like 3 or 4 days because I couldn't handle it. And for the most part, I hadn't really looked at myself seen myself as like ugly or not confident at all, mostly during my plus size years. But when those comments rolled in, some of them hurt. And it had me thinking about like what I was really doing and who I was. I was rethinking like, I am this plus size woman dressing up in this tiny little Sailor Scout outfit, on the weekends. And, should I be doing something else with my life? And then I realized, no, I shouldn't, because I love what I do. And I feel really pretty in Sailor Mars. And I feel really sexy in Rouge. And I feel amazing in my Connie from Steven Universe. And so I don't let the trolls get to me, especially now. But looking back, if I wasn't in the same mindset that I was then, I probably would have reacted a lot differently.
That is like, I always think about it because that like the thing that drew me to you initially was that you were this phenomenal cosplayer and you weren't letting anything stand in your way of doing what you wanted to do. And I was like, dang, like I wish I had that confidence. Because I definitely do not have any of that confidence, and I'm like, oh, let me hide in in my little corner of the world here. And I like admired everything that you did and went through, and I was so excited to just watch your journey, and it's been incredible. It's actually like it's one of the joys where I've been like, man, I'm so glad that I've been able to follow you on Instagram and Facebook and just see your journey from then to now.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
One of the things I always love about people who cosplay is they all have their plans for the future. And I know that you had mentioned the Mandalorian armor, but do you have anything else on deck?
Not right now. The Mandalorian build is probably one of my biggest projects that I've ever done. But actually, just kidding. My next major cosplay after the Mandalorian will be Nehelania from Sailor Moon. And she will be a huge sewing project for me, and I'm hoping to debut her at SubasaCon this fall. I have always loved Nehelania as a Sailor Moon villain, and her story is incredible in the way that she just lusted for beauty and youth. And so I will be debuting her. I will be making her wig from scratch, from pieces from Arda. And so that wig is going to be like a $200 project. And so I am excited to do my first major wig build since Serenity, because I made Serenity's ponytails and weaved braids and natural hair myself.
Ooh, that I always, whenever I have cosplayers on, I'm always amazed by like the things that cosplayers do, from the sewing to armor building to the wigs. Like I would be, number one, my hands just don't do that. Like I can't work like with my hands like that, but I'd be so scared of the wrong cut or the wrong thing and just like messing it all up.
Practice makes perfect. I have messed up quite a few things, and I have thrown down fabric, and I've walked away. I have turned off my sewing machine and just walked away from it. But practice makes perfect.
There you go. Now, for those people who have listened to this podcast episode and they want to follow you, they want to check out what you've done, what you're doing, going from checking out your future Mandalorian build, what are the best places for them to find you on the internet?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On Twitter, I am at Licia Rei. I mostly run my mouth on Twitter and talk about a lot of issues in the Black cosplay community. So if you want to join the conversation there, that's wonderful. I talk about all kinds of stuff all the time, and you get to see pictures of my cat, who is currently pawing at the door because he wants in my lap. I'm also on Instagram. I am at Miss Licia Renee, and so you can find me there too. And I post every couple of days, and I update my story every day. And I'm on Facebook. I am Kiss a Frog Cosplay on Facebook, and I update it every day.
Awesome. I will have the links to all of that in the show notes and on the Facebook page and website. And Licia, I just want to say thank you so much for your time this evening and talking with me about your fandoms. And I really hope that people that are listening go and check out your social medias, because I think there is so much value in following you and who you are. And it has been an absolute pleasure for me to have been able to do that for the past 3 years.
Thank you so much, David. It was an honor to be here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.